All right, well, it is 6 p.m. The first item on our agenda is the invocation, which we recognize with a moment of silence and then followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next up on the agenda is the roll call.
Agent,
Here.
Clegg, Halliburton,
Here.
Sanchez,
Here.
Willits, here, Woodings,
Here.
5 present, 1 absent.
All right. Oh, yes, Councilmember Sanchez.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the minutes of the work session and regular meetings of March 8th, 2022.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willits, yes, Woodings,
Yes.
Agent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
All right, next up, we have on our special business agenda, our yearly Boise City Council sitting as the Board of Corrections to hear and correct assessments levied for operation and maintenance of the Boise City Municipal Irrigation System for the 2022 irrigation season. All right, take it away.
Does that work? There we go. I'm sorry.
Do you have a motion?
This one? Okay. Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that council sits as the Board of Corrections to hear and correct assessments levied for operation and maintenance of the Boise City Municipal Irrigation System for the 2022 irrigation season.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willits,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Agent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
All right, now I think we can turn it over to you.
Okay, sorry about that. Madam Mayor, members of our council, thank you. Good evening. My name is John Gunnarsson. I'm a program manager for our Public Works Department. As most of you are aware, and for those of you who are not, the city of Boise operates and maintains now 14 subdivisions in West Boise, approximately 375 lots that are served by our pressure irrigation system. These subdivisions are over by Fairview and 5 Mile location. This year, just recently last month, the 3 additional subdivisions, 60 new lots were annexed into the Boise Municipal Irrigation District at the request of these subdivisions. And so now the city will be taking over the management and operation of these pressure irrigation systems. So tonight, per state code, our city council acts as the board of directors for our municipal irrigation district. Tonight, you are sitting as this board of directors to allow any property owners to dispute their assessments. This year, for water year 22, the assessment rate remains unchanged at $935 per acre. The last rate change was in 2018. Assessments were mailed out in February, and staff is not aware of any errors in our assessment. We do have a few administrative items that we are still cleaning up due to this recent annexation of these 3 subdivisions that we just did last month, but nothing notable. So next, Madam Mayor, members of council, with your permission, the floor should be open to anyone who would wish to dispute an error in their 2022 Boise Municipal Irrigation District assessment. If there's no one to report any errors, I suggest that we formally note that no corrections were needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Right, are there any residents in the audience who are here to dispute your assessments? All right. Do I need to close the public hearing?
Madam Mayor, I do have a couple of individuals online, so I would ask that they raise their hands if they're wanting to speak on this particular item.
Yes, if you are online and you would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand on Zoom.
Madam Mayor, I have no one who has raised their hand online.
Now do I close the public hearing? All right, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing on this item. And what is the pleasure of the council?
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the recommendation to mayor and council of the Boise Municipal Irrigation District assessment rate of $935 per acre for the 2022 water year. This amount is unchanged for the previous year.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Halliburton.
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have item 6, the consent agenda. All items with an asterisk are considered to be routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence.
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember Sanchez.
I move approval of the consent agenda with the exception of resolution 135-22, which has been requested by a council member to be pulled for separate consideration.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Willetts.
I wanted to point out the playground equipment that's going to be in the park at Hewlett Park and how excited residents of West Boise are about that. And it's a great opportunity for the folks that live there and who want to visit.
Wonderful. Thank you for that note. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Halliburton.
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes,
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, we will now consider resolution 135-22, a resolution approving a real property purchase and sale agreement by and between Betts Family Trust, Dwayne E. Betts trustee as seller in the city of Boise City. Do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move approval of resolution 135-22.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Willetts.
I'm going to be voting against the motion for a couple of different reasons. I don't believe that this property purchase is wise at this time. It looks to chase the market that is rapidly accelerating. And it seems like we are doing something opposite of what folks are trying to do down the street, which is to lower property taxes for Idahoans. And then we're taking property off the rolls that then could increase property taxes. I'm concerned that by acquiring this property that Boise will become a landlord. And in addition to the incongruence between trying to lower property taxes and the city gaining more public property, I'd like to suggest that we have a work session where we can have a presentation by the administration on where Boise owns property, both in the city and outside the city. I think this would be especially helpful as we look at the open space ordinance. I suspect that I'll be in the minority in this vote, but I do think it's important to shed a light on the challenges with continuing to buy property. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Willetts. Any other discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Bajent.
Well, I get all of those concerns and they're real. Every time you take a property off the tax rolls, you shrink your property tax base, which has almost by definition some effect on other property taxes. But a parcel here or a parcel there isn't what's driving high property taxes in Boise. It's a rapidly rising residential property value with a incommensurate rise in commercial property taxes and a homeowner's exemption that is 10 years old and needs to be indexed in a way that floats with the property taxes here. So I don't, the issues are related, but they're really not connected in my mind in that way. Getting to it, at an even more fundamental level, part of the reason that home prices are skyrocketing here is that we have what I believe to be an overly restrictive, overly cumbersome, overly challenging set of land use rules that make it difficult to build housing here, difficult to build enough housing. And so in my mind, to tackle this problem, we need some help with the legislature on the property tax formula. And we need some help with our own codes and our own processes, which we're working on, to try to allow the market to track reasonable and rational home prices here in Boise. So I agree with my colleague completely that property taxes are a big problem. But I don't see this kind of purchase as really a driver or really a material effect on that problem. We need to rewrite our zoning code, and we're working hard on that. And we need some real leadership on an important issue to Idahoans that puts human beings first and politics second in the State House to try to get our property tax formula set up correctly and fairly.
Any other discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The reality is our constituents have cried out for the city's support in helping them. This is simply one tool in response to their cries for help during this housing crisis. And the reality is we're hobbled in so many different ways because of the Idaho State Legislature, because of the uneven distribution of the responsibility to pay those property taxes. And it is unfairly shouldered by our residents, and commercial is not doing its fair share. We haven't had the support from the legislature that we need. So we are left to our own devices, and I am grateful, and I think many people in our community are grateful for the move that this administration is making towards addressing the need for affordable housing.
Any other discussion? I just wanted to note, in case everyone didn't read the entire consent agenda, this is an item that was brought to us by the administration to purchase a piece of property that currently is home to many manufactured homes, trailers near Shoshone Park. It's an immediate affordable housing project. It's one that already has affordable housing on it. We don't have to build additional affordable housing. It currently produces revenue in the way of rents of the folks who already live there. And in my estimation, it prevents dozens of people from immediate homelessness should this piece of property fall into private hands. So I think that for all of these reasons, it's smart. It's a good purchase. It's a good deal. We can decide how we want to transition this piece of property in the future while still maintaining the level of affordability that the folks who currently live there need right now, because they're not going to be able to just move and find somewhere else to rent. So I thank the administration for bringing this forward. I think it's really important. And if there's no further discussion, I'll have the clerk please call the roll.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Just really quickly, one of the things that I thought of while you were talking, I appreciate everybody's point of view, what they brought up today. One of the things that we were able to do last year is that we actually did discuss our city's housing inventory, and we were able to go through and take a look at all of those things. Councilmember Willits wasn't here, for that period of time. And so I certainly understand the need and the desire for a better understanding of all of those pieces of property. And there's probably a way for us to even, find that former work session, but to make sure that it is a discussion that we continue to have on a regular basis. What is our inventory? How are we using it and moving forward? So again, I agree with all of our council members today. And that idea of really evaluating our inventory is something probably that we want to do on a regular basis.
Right. Thank you. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Halliburton.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Willits.
No.
Woodings.
Yes.
Agent.
Yes.
4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
All right, we're going to move on to item 7, ordinances on first reading.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on first reading to be read by number and title only and filed for the second reading calendar.
Without objection?
ORD 14-22 and ordinance CAR 21-00034 for property located at 6589, 6611, 6675, and 6775 West Victory Road, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property, particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance from R-1C, single family residential, and A-1 open lands park to M-1D light industrial with design review, setting forth a reason statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date. ORD 15-22 and ordinance CAR 21-00027 for property located at 818 West Ann Morrison Park Drive, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property, particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance, and adjacent rights of way from C-2 DC, general commercial with design review and Capitol Boulevard overlay, to ROD DC/DA residential office with downtown design review and Capitol Boulevard overlay and development agreement, setting forth a reason statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date.
All right, on the second reading calendar.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on the second reading calendar be read by number and title only and filed for the third reading calendar.
Without objection.
ORD 9-22 and ordinance ZOA 21-00004, amending the development code regarding wireless communication facilities and associated definitions. Section 11-06-04.2 and section 11-12-02.1, including changes to the review process and site development standards for attached and freestanding communication facilities. ORD 10-22 and ordinance amending Title IX, Chapter 2, Development Impact Fee, Section 12B, Boise City Code. This amendment updates the development impact fees, per service unit and providing an effective date of May 6, 2022. ORD 11-22 and ordinance repealing and replacing Boise City Code Title III, Chapter 4, entitled Sidewalk Cafes, setting forth the legal authority, purpose, and scope of the ordinance, establishing that general license provisions are applicable, providing definitions, requiring a permit, and establishing permits are non-transferable, setting forth application requirements, the ongoing duty to update an application and timing of applications, allowing for conditions to be placed on a permit, establishing that a permit does not grant any property interest, providing for application fees, setting insurance requirements, setting forth the application review process, establishing permit standards and requirements, providing the permit term and renewal details, providing for the denial, suspension, or revocation of a permit and an appeal thereof, providing penalties for violations of the ordinance, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date. ORD 12-22 and ordinance amending Boise City Code Title III, Chapter 14, Stationless Shared Mobility Programs, and Boise City Code Title VI, Chapter 13, Bicycles, e-bikes, and scooters, approving a summary of the ordinance and providing an effective date. ORD 13-22 and ordinance adopting a new Chapter 19 to Boise City Code Title III entitled Festival Blocks, setting forth the legal authority, purpose, and scope of the ordinance, establishing that general licensing provisions are applicable, providing definitions, providing for the designation of festival blocks, providing an application for festival block designation, setting forth the factors and standards for festival block designation, providing the authority for designations, and that no property right is granted, requiring designation to operate as a festival block, establishing designations are non-transferable, providing the term of designation and compliances with all laws required, setting forth signage requirements, providing the uses allowed under festival block designation, establishing process for designation reassessment, providing for the denial, suspension, or revocation of a festival block designation and an appeal thereof, setting forth penalties for violations of the ordinance, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date.
Just so our new clerks aren't scared, our second reading is usually not that long. All right, third reading.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that further reading of ORD 7-22 be dispensed with and the record reflect it has been read the third time in full.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts,
No.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent,
No.
3 Three in favor, two opposed, motion carries. ORD 7-22, an ordinance enacting a new chapter 22 to Title 3 Boise City Code entitled Short-Term Rentals, providing the legal authority, scope, and purpose of the ordinance, providing that general licensing provisions shall be applicable to this chapter, setting forth definitions, requiring a license and prohibiting license transfer, setting forth a license application process and ongoing duty to the applicant to update application, and empowering the city clerk's office to condition a license issued under this chapter, providing for a license fee, setting forth license standards and requirements, requiring licensee to provide proof of insurance, setting forth license term, renewal requirements, and allowing license to remain valid during renewal investigation, providing for the denial, suspension, and revocation of a license issued under this chapter and an appeal process, providing a penalty for violations of this chapter, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that ORD 7-22 be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I won't be voting for this ordinance. We talked about it a lot and we don't need to go over it again. But I don't think it really does much to affect the market, which is good because we're not allowed to regulate the market. And in my view, my personal view, an ordinance that says who can and can't participate in the market of offering a short-term rental is an ordinance that regulates the market for those rentals. And I don't believe that's legal or permitted. Bigger picture, to the extent we're regulating public health or public safety, the people who need that help most are long-term residents in the long-term rentals. There's not a single issue identified with short-term rentals that doesn't apply with full and equal force to the long-term rentals. That goes from insurance to maintaining a safe, habitable space, et cetera, et cetera. And so I don't really see where this gets us. And I don't see it as really addressing the heart of the public safety concerns that we may well have. So I won't support it just on the Occam's razor principle of do less unless you need to do something.
Their discussion? I'm just going to note, so this is our short-term rental ordinance. This is an ordinance that enacts a business license fee for folks operating short-term rentals within the city of Boise. It requires them to show proof of insurance. It requires them to have fire suppression devices. And it gives our city the ability to know and see where short-term rentals are so that if anything comes up, we know that that property is a short-term rental rather than a long-term rental or a long-term owned residence. So that's what this ordinance does. It has a small fee that's attached to it, and the application process for this business license is going to be designed to be non-onerous and simple enough that if you can register your short-term rental on Airbnb, you will easily be able to comply with the terms of this ordinance. I will be supporting the ordinance, and I just wanted everyone to have a little bit of clarity on what this is and what it does. Seeing no further discussion, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Halliburton.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Willetts.
No.
Woodings.
Yes.
Agent.
No.
Three in favor, two opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Is the resolution automatically? Or do we need to?
Madam Mayor will need a separate motion for the resolution.
No, it's not resolution. Yeah.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move approval of resolution -172-22.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve resolution 172-22. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Clerk,
Mayor?
will you- Oh, yes.
I'd just like to reiterate my objection to this. I've talked about it before. I don't think it merits going into it again, but I'll be voting no.
Any further discussion? Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Halliburton.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Willetts.
No.
Woodings.
Yes.
Agent.
No.
Three in favor, two opposed, motion carries.
All right. Seeing no unfinished business, we'll move on to item 9, new business subdivisions. We have Josh Wilson with us from Planning and Development Services.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm here tonight to discuss SUB 21-00048, a preliminary plat for Hayes Silver Subdivision number 2. The subject property is located on the north side of Hill Road, approximately a half-mile east of the intersection with Pierce Park. It's a 2.2 acre site zoned R1C. The Category 3 Hillside permit for the property was approved at the January 10th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The applicant's proposal is a preliminary plat consisting of 12 buildable lots and 4 common lots. The project takes access from a private street, which will be extended to Hill Road as part of Hayes Silver Subdivision number 1. The buildable lots take access from a private drive or private street and common drive on the south, and then a common drive on the north boundary of the project also. The larger common lot along Hill Road is a landscape buffer for the properties, and the smaller common lots interior to the project contain landscape buffers and the common drive. The applicant has requested a waiver to the private street standards to reduce the required width from 24 feet to 20 feet. The private street will essentially function as a common drive. It's very short in length, and the topography of the site is such that space is limited. So they've requested that width waiver. Additionally, in close relation to that, they have proposed attached sidewalks on the private street and the common driveway within the project due to, again, that limited access. It just really provides access to a limited number of lots. And again, there's that topography constraint where space is limited. So the detached sidewalks have been proposed. Along Hill Road, a detached sidewalk with street trees and an 8-foot planter strip has been required in the conditions of approval. With that, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the preliminary plat, and we do here tonight, and I would stand for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Any questions for Josh? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the applicant, Ben Semple. Welcome, Ben.
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, good evening. Ben Semple with Rodney Evans and Partners, 1450 West Bannock, Boise, Idaho, 83702. Josh did a really good job encapsulating what this project is. It's a second phase of the subdivision, Hillside Category 3 subdivision. We did receive unanimous approval of phase 1, as well as phase 2 through planning and zoning, Hillside Category 3, Hillside development permitting. Phase 1 also has attached sidewalks due to those same topographical constraints. We're in agreement with all the conditions placed on this and would stand for questions.
Excellent. Any questions for the applicant? Great. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
All right. The Registered Neighborhood Association is the Southwest Ada County Alliance. Wait, this is on Hill Road. It shouldn't be SWACA. It should be Northwest Neighborhood. Is there anyone from Northwest Neighborhood, either in the room or online? Please raise your hand on Zoom.
Madam Mayor, I have no one online with their hand raised.
All right. Okay, I have several folks who have signed up in opposition to this project. So I'm just going to call folks up one at a time. I have Jerry Mullenix. Is that correct? Are you here to speak in opposition to this project? Okay. You'll be given 3 minutes, and I ask that you keep your testimony confined to this particular project. Please state your name and address.
My name is Jerry Mullenix. I live at 520, my address is 525 South Americana Boulevard. Yes, I am homeless.
Sir, are you here to, I'm really sorry. Are you here in relation
because
to this?
We're living in tents over there
Sir,
on Jefferson Street.
sir, I understand that. We are hearing testimony only on this project right now.
So why can't we move into those places?
Sir, thank you for coming down. Is there anybody here who's here to testify on this project specifically? Specifically to this project? Okay, please join us. What is your name? Okay, please come up to the microphone. Go ahead and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Cheyenne Hummer, and the address that I put on there is 525 South Americana Boulevard. Now, I see that since originally I was from Twin, it sounds almost exactly the same, only with the ability of housing. But I see some kind of a visual benefit to this and a visual con. So with is it like sidewalkless as in just low sidewalks with no lift barrier? Is what I'm seeing. It's how I see that as a con is up in Twin, they did the exact same thing in downtown is they took sidewalks, lowered them, and with it being driveways, if that driveway is hopped wrong, with the sidewalk being there, this is more going to be based on housing included, because if that car hops over that bit wrong, it can possibly accidentally hit someone's yarding or damage something within the sidewalk that could be wrong to it. Now, I see a good benefit to it with plantation is it could probably look nice. And with that being said, I'm a person who can see a lot of benefit to it, not much of a difficulty. And I actually do support that idea in a ways, but there's the opposition of the safety to it with if the sidewalk is too low.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, anybody else here to testify on this item? All right, seeing none. Ben, would you like to, as the applicant, rebut anything?
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, the attached sidewalk will still have a vertical curb that does protect traffic from entering the sidewalk. There will be driveways that come across the sidewalk, but would that be a standard of any development of the sidewalk on this project?
Great. Thank you
Thanks.
for that clarification.
Madam Mayor, one quick question for Ben. We have an absent colleague, and so I'd just be remiss if I didn't confirm that although you're removing 44 caliper inches of trees, you're also planning on replacing them with at least 60 new caliper inches of trees?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Badgett, that is correct.
That's much appreciated on behalf of my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. A motion is in order.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of Hayes Silvers subdivision number 2, SCB 21-48, Boise City preliminary plat.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
since Councilmember Bajent beat me to the punch with the trees, I would also note that there's a detached sidewalk going in on Hill Road that our missing council president would also be very supportive of. And I'm not worried about the attached sidewalk on that stretch. I just don't know that there's enough traffic that would warrant us really pushing for detached in that stretch. And I think our missing council member would be in agreement of that as well. So very supportive of the motion.
Wonderful. It's like Council President Clegg is here with us tonight and all of her thoughts. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
All right. Next up, we move on to item B, public hearings, CAR 21-36. We have Jesse Lyle from PDS. Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, council members, the item before you is CAR 36 or 21-36 and SUB 21-57. It's a rezone of 1.73 acres from R1A to R1C located at 2587 Maple Grove Road. A preliminary and final plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 13 buildable and 3 common lots is also proposed. The subject property is just north of Molinaire Park and northwest of Maple Grove Elementary. The land use designation is suburban, which allows for open lands, single-family residential, and office zoning. The property is currently zoned R1A, and the applicant is requesting a rezone to R1C. This is the most compatible zone for the site as it increases density along arterials and near schools while keeping the character of the surrounding single-family neighborhood. The Planning and Zoning Commission approved a PUD for 13 detached single-family homes with 3 common lots. 2 of them buffer Maple Grove Road, and 1 provides public access to Moldner Park with a fire turnaround. There are 8 trees currently on site, 2 of which will remain, and the applicant will plant 22 Class 2 and 24 Class 1 trees, resulting in 140 calipers on site. The Planning and Zoning Commission approved a condition to detach the sidewalks internal to the site and allow the existing new attached sidewalks along Maple Grove to remain. The applicant proposed to dedicate the street as public, and a condition of approval reads that the approval of the preliminary plat is contingent on the acceptance of the proposed street by ACHD. The ACHD report received the day of the meeting conditioned that the proposed street be constructed as a private road, citing a lack of redevelopment potential to the west. The planning team disagrees with this analysis and believes that long-term, there's potential for the lots to the west to redevelop in a similar manner, with potential connectivity provided throughout the street in the proposed subdivision. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval with conditions, and I will stand in for any questions. I also have Karen Gallagher and Dave Rader from the comprehensive planning team to answer questions as well.
Any questions for staff this time? All right, you're off the hook for now. Don't go far. All right, next up, we have Ben Simple with Rodney Evans and Partners, the applicant.
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, Ben Semple, 1450 West Bannock Street, Boise, Idaho, 83702. Yeah, Jesse did again. Planning team always does a great job encapsulating the project reports, and we are in agreement with the conditions of approval placed on this by the city of Boise. We identified this area and this lot as a very good candidate for redevelopment for single family homes in the area. There is some R1C zoning that isn't immediately adjacent, but does exist not very far. I think it's about 350 feet north of this property. We also see the development potential of lots to the west. They're very large R1A lots. There's a public park, a school nearby, as well as the ability to eventually get a street that would connect the stub of this street to other public rights of way to the west. We have designed this to be on a common lot within the subdivision. So depending on how this goes, it could be set aside as private for now with the potential for dedication as a public roadway in the future upon, you know, another development plan occurring to the west. Regardless, it will be built with a street section that meets ACHD code for a public roadway. We will have detached sidewalks, and those sidewalks will fall either within a right of way in the future or within a sidewalk easement that would be outside that could be dedicated to ACHD as well. There's an additional benefit here. We didn't have to encumber part of the property with a temporary turnaround that would typically be required because we do have a hammerhead on the site that's built in to that road section and common lot that also will have a sidewalk connection directly to Molinar Park. So residents of this community and future residents for any development occurring to the west could walk within these internal roadway sidewalks and get to the park without ever going out onto the attached sidewalk along Maple Grove. And as Jesse pointed out, we are substantially mitigating for any of the trees that are removed from the site, about threefold from what's being removed. I would stand for any additional questions.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Ben, this might be a question for you, or it might be for our staff. I was confused about the conditions of approval and the road. So tell me if I've got this correct. And if I do, then I'll say something and you can straighten me out on that. So originally your application was contingent upon conditions of approval from ACHD for a public street. Then there was discussion and a recommendation for a private street that's kind of up in the air because there's this bigger policy issue we need to resolve. And so my question is there anything, assuming that we were to vote to approve your project, is there anything about the conditions that we would need to change so that both options are open to you and you can get to work?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Badgett, not that I can tell. I mean,
Okay.
we're setting aside that common lot for the roadway to meet the standards of an ACHD right of way in the future or now. It just is whatever the decision is made, we can go either direction.
Okay, good. Yeah, that was a better way to put it. My question was, the initial application was contingent on the public right of way. Now it might turn out to be a private right of way. There's no old language in there that's going to make you have to come back to us to get it fixed.
No, and we will play, if it does become private, then the HOA would be able to own and maintain that roadway. It would still be built to ACHD standards, as is every private street in Boise.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for the applicant? Great. Thanks, Ben. All right, the Neighborhood Association of record is the Southwest Ada County Alliance. Looks like we have Tanya Clough is the official representative. Tanya, are you online?
Madam Mayor, I have a Marissa Keith with her hand raised online, so we can verify that that in fact is the representative for the Neighborhood Association.
Great. Yep. Welcome, Marissa.
Madam Mayor, if you give me just one moment, I will promote her so she can speak.
Great. Thank you.
Marissa, be able to unmute.
Yep, hello.
Yep, we can hear you, Marissa.
Thanks. Marissa Keith, 3279 South Cloverdale, Boise, Idaho, president of the Southwest Ada County Alliance Neighborhood Association. I think my only concern with this is we'll have a public path from Molinar going into a private street and making sure that that public path is open and welcoming from no matter which side that you try to access it. I'm all about getting kids off arterials as much as possible. So if we have children walking down that private road and then utilizing that public pathway, I want to make sure that there's no mix up with the future HOA as to if they're allowed to do that or not. Otherwise, I have no other comments.
Wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate you being here tonight. All right. And then from the public, it looks like on the record, we have Robert Erskine. Robert, are you with us online?
Madam Mayor, there is no one else online.
Thank you. And we don't have anyone signed up for this item. Was there any member of the public who would like to testify on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll welcome Ben Semple, the applicant, back up.
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, to address the Neighborhood Association, the sidewalks, while they could be public or private, depending on what the decision is made. If they are private, this is not a gated community. Those sidewalks will be connected to public sidewalks along Maple Grove, which will remain open. And in conversations with the Boise Parks Department, we will not be gating the connection into the park. And we can add some language to the CCNRs so that the HOA understands that that connection is public. And so that the public would be allowed to, if they're coming down Maple Grove, they could come into this subdivision and then go into the park from that connection. That wouldn't be a problem.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
do any concern or any problem with just recording a public easement across those sidewalk spaces so that you don't have to deal with your CCNRs, you don't have to do anything like that? It's just in there and it always will be.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Badgett, that would be an option too. I mean, I think we'll just talk to the surveyor about the final plat and how we encumber those. Regardless, there's a sidewalk easement there. So if we need to add the city of Boise as a beneficiary of that easement, that's not a problem.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Ben?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just for clarification, and this really is just me not being able to quite follow the map. I'm not quite understanding or seeing where the micropath exists on the map.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, currently there's a pathway within the park. And then in about the middle of the southern block of this project, there's a hammerhead turnaround. So at the end of that turnaround, it's really going to be treated kind of like a plaza space that will be marked as a fire lane so no one parks there. But from the end of that turnaround to the southern boundary, which abuts the park, would be a public pathway. I have the specifications from Boise City Parks about how that gets built. I believe it's either a 10 or a 12-foot wide pathway, and we'll meet that standard.
Great. That's enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ben? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Does anyone have any questions for staff or a motions in order? If not,
Madam Mayor, I move approval of CAR 21-36 brought forward by Rodney Evans and Partners at 2587 Maple Grove Road, a rezone of approximately 1.73 acres from R1A Single Family Residential to 2.1 units per acre to R1C Single Family Residential 8 units per acre.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, will you please call the,
Madam Mayor, I guess I'll just briefly register my strong support of the idea that that road should be public. I mean, the public is going to be using the public road to get to a big chunk of open public space. Makes all the sense in the world to me that that would be a public street. And I'm sure that there are many conversations. There were some references to this being a bigger policy issue with other cities, but this is a great opportunity just to register my support for the idea that the streets that the public is using should probably be public streets.
You're here, Councilmember Bajent. All right, any other discussion? Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of SUB 21-57, Samara Subdivision, Boise City Preliminary Final Plat, brought forward by Rodney Evans and Partners at 2587 Maple Grove Road, preliminary and final plat for a subdivision that is comprised of 13 buildable and 3 common lots on 1.73 acres on a proposed R1C single-family residential zone.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
All right, there's no more business before the council.
Move to adjourn, Madam Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Real Madam Mayor, thank you for joining us.
No, you were the real Madam Mayor tonight. Well done. Thanks all for having me. Good to see you all.
Hopefully everybody got passing marks.
Everybody passed. I told Councilmember Bajent, I felt like the yard guard just watching on the screen beneath you all.
Like, I just can't mess up. I just can't mess up. No, it
Good
was-
night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Have a nice night.